Friends, Xiaomi's very first SUV, the Xiaomi YU7, is finally here. Thank you all for waiting. The color next to me here is called titanium metallic. Yes, it's one of the most popular colors in consumer electronics. As for this car paint, under natural light, when the sunlight hits it, it reveals some warm tones. It's an incredibly beautiful metallic color, and it's also my personal favorite among all the car paint options. The car next to it with the gemstone green paint looks even sportier and more striking. And as the official images previously revealed, there's also that blue color. So far, based on my understanding of Xiaomi's pricing strategy, these colors are most likely included at no extra cost. Now let's look at its positioning. It's a very standard mid to large SUV with a length of 4.99 meters, a width of 1.99 meters, and a height of 1.60 meters. The wheelbase is the same as the YU7, but from the side view, you'll notice it has a distinctly long hood, which gives it a very attractive body proportion and results in a beautiful overall stance. Looking at the front end, it's actually similar to the Xiaomi YU7 in that it retains the signature Mi-shaped headlights. However, what's different is that the upper part here is hollowed out. You can actually reach your hand through it. This has become an air intake, which connects to the air outlet on the hood. So airflow comes in from here and exits from there. Doesn't the overall design look pretty cool? Hey, what's even cooler is right here. At the front, it uses an aluminum pump-style hood, which greatly reduces the length of the seams facing the wind. The key point is that it features an electrically operated front trunk opening. Besides opening it with a button, you can also ask Xiaomi, the voice assistant, to open it for you from outside the car. Just take a look. Once it opens, doesn't this big mouth look really striking and beautiful? I think the way it looks when it's open is very reminiscent of a fastback model like those with a large lift-back tailgate. The stance is really unique. And this design brings a very direct benefit. It gives you an extremely spacious front trunk. According to the official specs, you can fit a 24-inch checked suitcase in there. So under normal circumstances, you probably won't even need to use the rear trunk. Now, looking at the side here, it's actually a bit different from what we saw in the official photos. Specifically, on the wheel arch area, in the official images, there were some little raised spikes. Do you remember those? But what we're seeing today on this prototype is that the wheel arch has become a much smoother, flatter surface. Personally, I think the previous design gave off more of a sporty, aggressive vibe, but now that it's a smoother, flatter surface, it looks a bit more minimalist. So, between these two different styles, which one do you prefer? Next, let's look further down at the wheel. Unlike the previous YU7, which had a clover-shaped wheel, this prototype now features a much simpler, spokeless design. The size is 245/45 R21. Another detail that's different is that the rear tires are actually wider than the front ones. This is a small detail that helps improve handling during driving. Moving further back, the door handle is probably the most controversial part of the Xiaomi prototype so far. Because the semi-hidden door handle on the previous Xiaomi YU7 was very well received, but with this new handle, people are concerned that women might get their fingernails caught. Today, let's do a real test. I also have long nails, and as you can see, when I make the motion to open the door, I don't need to use much force. The car already senses that I want to open the door, so it automatically folds the handle inward electrically. Then I just give it a gentle squeeze and the door opens. This is a bit different from the way we saw the Ferrari Parangu open its doors before, because with the Ferrari you have to squeeze the handle entirely by hand, and when it returns you might worry about pinching your hand. If you have long nails, they could get stuck in that spot. So this mechanism has been optimized and adjusted a bit. Additionally, to answer everyone's question about why Xiaomi didn't use the semi-hidden door handle from the previous YU7, if you notice, the rear door handle is positioned on the curved surface of the car. If they had used the previous semi-hidden door handle, the overall light and shadow effect wouldn't look as good visually. That's why they went with this electric inward-folding hidden door handle, which also improves aerodynamics and doesn't affect the shape of the surface as much. Now let's take a look at the rear of the car. Actually, the taillights on the prototype have been adjusted in proportion to match the SUV's shape and dimensions. So after widening and raising them, the taillights have become more three-dimensional, and I think they actually look even better this way. That's why I feel the rear end is the part of the prototype that really impressed me this time. Next, let's take a look at the trunk. But I do have a minor complaint. This time, the trunk release button is located next to the rear camera, so every time you want to open the trunk, you have to bend down a little. It's just not all that elegant. And after you open the trunk, you'll notice that the trunk's capacity isn't particularly impressive. It's actually pretty average. However, Xiaomi is smart in that they have a very large front trunk, which helps make up for the lack of standout space in the back. In addition, after you lift up the trunk floor panel, there's an extra compartment underneath where you can store some small miscellaneous items. That's basically all there is to the trunk space. Okay, moving inside the car, at first glance you might think, hey, the interior feels pretty similar to the SU7, like there aren't many changes. But actually, you'll notice that every detail is a bit different. First of all, what's really different is that in the YU key, there's a 1.1 meter long panoramic curved projection display in front of you. At this point, you might say, oh, isn't this just an HUD only stretched out and wider? But it's actually quite different. Normally, the HUD is positioned a bit further forward than this screen, and its main advantage is that you don't have to constantly shift your visual focus while driving. However, the clarity of this screen is much, much higher than that of a typical HUD. In addition, they've also positioned this screen as far forward as possible, so when you're driving, you don't have to strain your eyes too much to look at it. So now what we can see is that in front of the driver, there's a display showing instrument information, like your speed, remaining range, driving modes, and so on. In the middle, there's a navigation interface, and on the passenger side, there's an entertainment screen. For example, when the passenger is singing, they can follow the lyrics displayed in front of them. They can just sing along, which adds a bit of emotional value. Of course, the content displayed on these three screens in front can also be customized according to your own needs. But I think its real advantage lies in situations where you need some visual assistance. For example, when you turn on the left or right indicator, the rear camera feed will be shown on the front screen, so the display quality of this screen is actually quite important. Of course, aside from these basic and practical features, I also heard from their staff just now that this time the Xiaomi SU7 has integrated the launch mode with these three front screens. For example, when the launch mode is activated, these three front screens will provide visual and audio effects, creating a very immersive and enveloping experience. The emotional value is really well captured. Let's keep looking further, and you'll notice that the center console here is completely different from the SU7 we saw before. On the SU7, there was a row of 4 physical buttons on the left side for adjusting driving modes, air conditioning, and so on, but all of these have been removed on the YU7. I'm not sure if it's because after the SU7 was delivered in large numbers, people found that the feedback from the Xiaomi voice assistant was actually quite good and intuitive, so they decided to remove the physical buttons and free up more storage space. So I think in this way, it actually fits the positioning of this SUV quite well, since people generally have higher expectations for storage space in this type of vehicle. As for the overall comfort in the front row, another major change is that the Xiaomi SU7 supports dual zero-gravity seats for both the driver and the front passenger. This feature is actually quite rare. We've seen it before in Avatar models. When both zero-gravity seats are fully reclined and combined with the seat massage function, the level of comfort this time is even more pronounced. Okay, now the zero-gravity seat mode for both the driver and front passenger is activated, and both are in a fully reclined position. Combined with the seat massage, I also asked their staff, and they said that this time, the Xiaomi SU7 has made a lot of improvements in the seat materials and the foam fabric, so I think it can really showcase its advantages in the spacious interior of an SUV. These dual zero-gravity seats should attract quite a few users. At the very least, I think female users will find them especially appealing. So these are some of the features we can see right now in the front row of the Xiaomi SU7's interior. But I have to mention a minor drawback I've noticed so far. The interior of this car uses a predominantly warm yellow material. While the large area of warm yellow does look quite cozy, I think there's a potential issue. For example, when the sunlight is strong, the front area can reflect light, which might slightly affect your line of sight. So my suggestion for everyone right now is, if possible, try not to choose this light-colored interior for your car. Opt for a darker shade instead. It will be better for your driving safety. Of course, I know that for most consumers, what everyone cares about most this time is definitely the second row seating space in the Xiaomi SU7. So in this one-take shot, I'm currently sitting in the front row in a fairly comfortable driving position. I could even recline the seat back a bit more. Take a look at my current driving posture, and now let's go check out the second row. Actually, before I started talking to everyone just now, I sat inside the car to get a feel for it, and indeed the seating position is a bit higher. Another thing that's quite obvious to the naked eye is that the headroom is very spacious. This really surprised me because the Xiaomi SU7's exterior design is more streamlined and coupe-like this time, so I didn't expect the interior to offer such impressive headroom. It might be because the area under the panoramic roof is made thinner, which creates more upward space. As for the current legroom, you can use a simple reference. It's a little more than 2 fist widths. But what's clever about Xiaomi is that the angle of the second row seat back is infinitely adjustable, and it can go up to 135 degrees. Let's try it out. This is the maximum 135-degree angle I can adjust it to right now. Check this out. I can actually lie down in the second row, guys. Isn't that pretty impressive? Next, let's take a look at some small details in the second row that enhance overall comfort. For example, at the elbow area, there's a raised soft pad, so your arms won't be left hanging with nowhere to rest. Once you lower the armrest beside you, you can comfortably rest your arms here. And then there's what everyone talks about, the fridge, the big TV, and the large sofa. For a car at this level, you've got to have them. So where's the TV? Just like with the SU7, you can add 2 tablet screens behind the seats. In the middle, there's also a small central control screen where you can adjust the seat position, the screen brightness, and the panoramic sunroof. As for the panoramic sunroof, there was a lot of discussion before about sunshades. This time, Xiaomi has cleverly introduced adjustable light transmission on the SU7. Whether you want to block the sun or let light in, you can adjust it through the screen. This is quite a smart solution. In addition, there's also a refrigerator, right here, a small fridge, so all the essentials are included. Besides these features, I also noticed that under the second row seats, there are 2 small drawers where you could stash some private money. But don't count on hiding anything there, because after watching this video, everyone in the country will know about these 2 little drawers. Finally, regarding the entire powertrain and motor section, the official figures have not yet been clearly provided. But what I can share with you is that, unlike the SU7, all versions of the Xiaomi YU7 come standard with both LiDAR and 4D millimeter wave radar. In other words, the entry-level version that existed with the SU7 is no longer present in the YU7. So, based on this strategy, I would guess, just my estimate, that the Xiaomi YU7 will probably be about 30,000 yuan more expensive than the SU7. If that's the price, then between the Xiaomi YU7 and the Tesla Model Y, which one would you choose?